Here's the crow, and I say that this story is not the only one. There are others like him, and some do not even try to fight. They accept the call. The curse is not always a condemnation. Sometimes it is a destiny. The legend of the seventh son did not arise by chance. In various cultures around the world, it is believed that the seventh son of a male lineage carries a special destiny, sometimes divine, other times cursed. In European folklore, especially in Ireland and France, the seventh son was seen as a powerful wizard or healer. In Brazil and Argentina, the belief took a darker turn. The seventh son of a seventh son would be destined to become a werewolf. The only way to break this curse? To be baptized by the older brother before the seventh day of life. Otherwise, he would be doomed to become a beast on nights of the full moon. But what if this legend was more than just a tale to frighten children? What if destiny itself was behind this choice, shaping these men for something beyond human understanding? Samuel was born under this omen. Since his childhood, the gazes of the village followed him with fear and respect. He knew there was something different about him. Something that called to him on full moon nights. Something that wanted to be freed. Samuel watched the full moon from his bedroom window, its silvery light filling the space with a hypnotic aura. It was as if the moon whispered his name, promising something he didn't fully understand. Since childhood, the gazes of the village followed him with fear and respect, and Samuel knew there was something different about him, something that called to him on full moon nights. The legend said that the seventh son of a male lineage should be baptized by the older brother before the seventh day of life, or he would be doomed to become a beast when the full moon nights arrived. However, his story was marked by a tragedy that led to his condition. His older brother Daniel had died in a tragic accident just a few days after his birth, and the pain of the loss consumed the family. The father, devastated, had no spirit to perform the baptism, and thus Samuel was born cursed from day one. Over time, this gap in his beginning haunted Samuel, but it also generated a disturbing curiosity. He wondered if, somehow, he could reverse his destiny. Instead, he began to realize that the curse could be more than a condemnation. It could be a call. On the night he turned 7, his dreams became more vivid, as if something was trying to communicate with him. He saw dancing shadows and heard distant laughter, as if the world itself was having fun at his expense. Pressured by expectations and the guilt of not having received the baptism that would protect him, Samuel felt a weight in his chest, an internal struggle between accepting what was imposed on him and seeking his true self. One night, curiosity led him into the forest, where the trees seemed to whisper ancient secrets. With each step, a new understanding was born. The curse could be a disguised blessing. He remembered the legend that spoke of the seventh son's connection to hidden and ancestral powers. It was not just a question of struggling against expectations, but of a quest for understanding and acceptance of who he truly was. Samuel found an ancient altar, covered in moss and surrounded by forgotten symbols. As he approached, something awakened inside him. A chill ran down his spine as he realized that place was sacred, a confluence point between the human and the mystical. If I am truly the chosen one, he thought, perhaps I should claim this instead of fleeing. During the following nights, he secretly gathered with the inner force he felt growing each month, guided by the moon. As these meetings became more frequent, Samuel began to notice changes. His senses were heightened. He could hear better, see beyond what ordinary eyes could, and a new instinct guided him. Over time, Samuel became an enigmatic figure in the village. While many viewed him with fear, some began to seek his help. He healed wounds and listened to the pains of those who sat before him, empathizing with their struggles. It was a fine line between being seen as a savior or a monster. One night, in a moment of epiphany, he found himself under the full moon, knowing that transformation was lurking, but not in fear. Instead, Samuel closed his eyes and accepted the curse. He let himself be carried away by the intonation of nature, allowing his essence to merge with the primal force of the night. The pain and chaos he feared became a dance, an ode to the power that had always been within him. However, his decision to accept the call would not only affect his life, but the life of the entire village. The balance he needed to bring was beyond his understanding, and the shadows that floated around him, now vigilant, seemed to crown his choice with a silent warning. Something greater was approaching, and Samuel, the seventh son, was about to discover that the true battles were not only against his own nature, but also against the forces that drive it. On the night when the full moon illuminated the sky with intensity, Samuel felt a pulsating energy around him, as if the earth itself was reacting to his acceptance. He remembered his grandmother's words, who always said that seventh sons had a special connection to the supernatural. And now, as he began his transformation, a warm tingling ran through his body, but it was not the pain he had imagined. It was a sensation of liberation. The shadows that had always tormented him now danced around him, as if they were celebrating his ascent. His instinct guided him through the forest, leading him to a circle of stones he had never seen before. In the center, a source of light emanated a vibrant energy. There, he felt the weight of responsibility. He was not just a cursed seventh son. He was becoming a guardian of an ancient legacy, a link between the world of men and the realm of spirits. He heard an inner voice, soft but powerful, inviting him to accept his true role. "You have never been a curse, Samuel," the voice echoed in his mind, "but a blessing for those who need your strength. The curse imposed upon you is the key to protecting your village from the dark forces that are approaching." As he prepared to embrace his new identity, Samuel realized that his transformation could be a catalyst for change. With each beat of his heart, he felt he was accessing an ancestral power, something that pulsed through the veins of his ancestors. He knew he had to use that power, not to hide or flee, but to face what was coming. The following nights brought a sense of urgency and danger. The visions that were once mere dances of shadows began to materialize into terrifying forms. Nightmare creatures, beams of darkness threatening the peace of the village. They were drawn by the fragility surrounding the seventh son, and drew closer with each full moon. Samuel decided he could no longer hide in the shadows. He began to gather those in the village who were receptive to his vision, those who believed he could be a protector and not a beast. Some looked at him with distrust, but others saw in him a hope they had not experienced in years. Together, they formed a hidden group, a circle of allies ready to face the darkness. On the next full moon, Samuel and his new friends gathered in the stone circle. He explained that they needed to unite their strengths, that his ability to transform into something more could be what protected them. They mapped out a plan of action. Over the next few weeks, they would practice together, learning to channel their energies and face the demons threatening their home. On the eve of the following month, as the wind howled and the trees swayed under growing pressure, Samuel knew the confrontation was near. The darkness was approaching, and this battle would not be fought merely with their forces. It was a fight for all the love, hope, and faith that resided in their village. That night, under the light of the full moon, Samuel looked at his friends and saw not only fear but determination in their eyes. They were ready to fight. With a shout that echoed like thunder, they advanced to defend their home. Samuel, now mastering his new form, led the charge, the promise of a bright future burning in his heart. As they plunged into battle against the forces of darkness, he realized that the true transformation was not only his. It was the unity of all those who allowed themselves to believe in a greater destiny. The curse that had seemed a burden had turned into a blessing, not just for him, but for his entire village. And so, the story of the seventh son unfolded, not as a tale of fear and misfortune, but as a legend of courage, love, and liberation, where a boy who was seen as cursed would become the hero his village needed. Samuel grasped the moonlight as if it were an immaterial limb of a dream, feeling it penetrate his bones, offering him an indescribable intimacy with the universe. Each pulse seemed to connect him with something ancestral, a guardian spirit that had long been waiting for him. Yet, at the same time, an unease settled in his heart. After accepting the curse, he realized a new and heavy responsibility had arisen. The following morning brought not only the shine of the sun, but also the murmurs of the village. Rumors spread, with many claiming that the animals were restless and that the full moon of the previous night had caused strange occurrences. The harvests bore fruits of odd shapes, and some children claimed to have seen shadowy figures in the forest. The village was beginning to become aware of his presence. Those shadows that surrounded him on tranquil nights were now being felt by all. Samuel quickly realized that by embracing his own nature, he had also awakened something that had previously been dormant. It seemed that the fates of the village and his own were inextricably intertwined. A month after his transformation, something unexpected happened. During the new moon, a group of villagers, determined to end what they considered a curse, decided to confront him in the forest. Armed with torches and makeshift tools, they arrived at the altar where Samuel usually found his peace. He felt the fear and agitation of the men, as if their hearts were beating in tune with the earth. "Samuel!" shouted the leader of the group, an elderly man known to all as the village healer. "You have brought misfortune upon us. Your dark forces are preying on our lives. Come with us and renounce this path before it is too late." Samuel rose slowly, his essence deep and elevated by the moon that was in his heart. He looked into the eyes of his brothers and sisters, realizing that they did not seek his end, but rather an understanding, a delight in understanding the unknown. "Master Aldo," Samuel began, his voice resonating like a gentle echo, "do you not see that the curse that haunts me is also a gift? I am not a monster. I am a guardian of a power that can bring healing and renewal, but that also demands responsibility." The faces of the crowd showed a mix of fear and confusion. The intensity of Samuel's gaze seemed to cut through the shadows weighing on their hearts, and he began to see a glimmer of hope as he spoke. "I did not choose this life, but accepted the part that is mine. Come, let me show you what it means to have a bond with nature, how this power can unite us in a greater purpose. I do not need to bear this burden alone. We can work together, and perhaps we can restore what was lost." Samuel's words struck an emotional chord. Aldo subtly stepped forward, his expression less severe. "It is risky, Samuel. What you propose is an unknown path, especially for us. But you present us with a possibility, even if small." Samuel took a deep breath, feeling the wind around his body. The glimmer of hope grew, and he knew that this could be the beginning of a new era, not just for him, but for everyone in the village. And so, he called upon the wisdom of the moon and the soil, promising to guide the villagers on a path where they chose to create harmony between their traditions and the strength of nature. From that day on, the altar would become a place of learning and connection, where villagers would gather to understand the cycles of life and their interactions with the powerful elements around them. Samuel, now seen as a leader and not just a cursed one, began to teach about the gifts that arise from fear and transformation. However, as the village united, a sinister shadow approached. Deep in the forest, something Samuel could not understand. An older and more powerful force than his own curse watched their movements, weaving threads of chaos that could not only test the new alliance, but also threaten everything he had come to love. To the night sky, Samuel raised his eyes, perceiving the struggle forming on the horizon and the necessity to prepare, not only against the forces that pursued him, but for a new and necessary battle against his own destiny. In the following weeks, the village began to flourish in new ways. Samuel and the villagers dedicated themselves to practicing not only protective rituals, but also resurrecting ancestral traditions that had long been forgotten. It was a true renewal. However, behind the apparent calm, a storm brewed in the shadows. Samuel felt a growing unease as the nights progressed. Although the bond with the village strengthened, the call that lured him to the forest seemed more intense, like an inescapable song that summoned his heart. Something evil lurked in the darkness, threatening not only his new life, but everything he had learned to love. One night, while the group gathered around the altar, a cold breeze swept through the clearing, causing the flames of the lanterns to flicker. Walking amidst the trembling light, Samuel noticed that some of the flowers that had grown around the altar suddenly wilted. The air had an oppressive intensity, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. "Something is not right," he murmured, feeling the tension in the air. And then, amid the darkness, a figure emerged. It was a being cloaked in shadows, tall and skeletal, its features indistinct, as if it were in constant flux. The being's eyes shone with a penetrating red light. "You dare to challenge the laws of destiny, seventh son?" The voice was a cold whisper, like wind passing through a crypt. "You who ignore your true purpose, attract destruction. The curse was given to you for a reason." The crowd recoiled, fear dancing on their faces. Samuel held his head high, feeling the energy pulsing around him. "I am not destined to succumb. I am more than a curse. I am a guardian, and will not allow you to threaten those I love." The shadowed being laughed, a macabre sound that echoed through the forest. "Do you think your choice can change what is written in the stars? I am the embodiment of the forces you cannot comprehend, Samuel. Darkness always returns." With a swift gesture, the being unleashed a wave of darkness upon the group. The energy transformed into a thick fog that darkened the clearing, obscuring vision and causing murmurs of despair among the villagers. Samuel felt his heart race, but a flame of determination began to burn within him. "Let's go," he shouted, using the connection he had cultivated with the earth and the moon. "Join your voices to my call. The strength of our union is our greatest weapon." The villagers, hesitant at first, began to unite, forming a circle around Samuel. With hands intertwined, they began to chant protection incantations, invoking the energy of nature that surrounded them. As their voices rose, Samuel felt the wave of resistance pulsing among them, creating a light that began to dispel the darkness. The shadowed being stirred, its eyes glinting with growing frustration. "You cannot fight against the inevitable. Chaos is part of the cycle, and you will pay the price for opposing it." But Samuel remained steadfast. He surrendered to the rising energy within him, his spiritual essence expanding to merge with the power of the village. He knew that his transformation was not a burden but a gift that could lead to victory. In that moment of clarity, he realized something crucial. The force seeking to destroy was not merely evil, but a product of the fear and pain that the curse perpetuated. Instead of fighting against that being, he could try to understand it. Perhaps the darkness was also seeking redemption. Focusing on that, Samuel made a bold move and, instead of attacking, spoke with a clear and sincere voice. "I understand your pain. You were shaped by darkness, but you do not have to remain that way. We can seek the light together." The creature hesitated, the fury in its eyes fading to reveal a glimmer of confusion. Samuel, anxious, projected all his intentions, channeling not just the power of his transformation, but the collective hope of his friends. He wished for darkness not to be the only choice. "Together, we can find a new purpose. It doesn't have to be this way," he said, as the light radiated more intensely around him. The shadowed being stopped, its form beginning to waver as if the light was breaking the chains that bound it. An internal struggle was beginning to take place, and Samuel realized he had to keep believing. He held his gaze steady on the being, feeling the connection growing between them. And so, in a battle not of strength, but of understanding and empathy, the boundaries between light and darkness began to dissolve. The darkness writhed, and with one last scream, the creature collapsed under the weight of its own chains. A blinding glow erupted from its form, altering the very fabric of the forest. Samuel felt a wave of power course through his body as the resistance of the being shattered. And in that moment of transformation, it was not just he who was being changed. The village, the being, and everything around him glowed in a new dawn. When the light finally diminished before his eyes, what had been a shadow had transformed into a being of light, its formlessness now defined by a gentle and reassuring glow. The being looked at Samuel, and in its expression was not only gratitude but a new understanding. You no longer need to fear the darkness, for your light is stronger than you imagine. We are no longer enemies. Together, we can write a new story. And so, the cycle closed, and the 12th son of the curse was now part of something much greater. After the transformation, the clearing was enveloped in a reverent silence. The being of light, now free from its chains of darkness, began to materialize into a more defined figure with smooth and luminous features. It was like witnessing the dawn after a long night. Samuel realized that, although the battle was won, the journey was just beginning. "I am a Helion," the figure said, its voice now soft and melodic, like the song of birds at dawn. "I was shaped by pain and rejection, but your light has brought me back. You had the courage to see beyond the shadow and were willing to know me. I am grateful for your compassion." The villagers, still stunned, watched Elion's transformation with admiration. The connection between them became clear. The darkness that had threatened their lives was now an opportunity for learning and understanding. Samuel felt empowered, knowing that his choice not to fight with anger had opened doors he never imagined. "We need to unite," Samuel said, looking at Elion. "There are many truths in this land that remain hidden. As the guardian of the forest, you will be able to help us understand nature, ensuring that the dark forces never threaten us again." Elion agreed, its light pulsating in harmony with the heart of the forest. "Together we can protect this sacred space. But darkness never disappears completely. It needs to be guided. We will understand the forces that coexist, and thus we can teach others to find their own balance." With a new purpose, Samuel was ready to lead the village in exploring this path. In the following days, the altar became a center of learning, where Aldo and other wise villagers gathered with Samuel and Elion to share knowledge about forgotten traditions and the wisdom of nature. The nights when they gathered under the light of the full moon were no longer filled with fear, but with celebrations and rituals honoring both darkness and light. The village children began to bring flowers, and the songs that had once been whispers of fear now sounded like hymns of gratitude. Fear had vanished, replaced by a deep understanding that every being, even those of shadows, were integral parts of the tapestry of life. The union between the village and Elion strengthened as months passed. But Samuel knew they needed to be prepared. It was not just about healing wounds. It was an ongoing work. One day, while walking through the forest, Elion approached him with a worried expression. "Samuel, I sense that a new challenge is approaching. Beings from farther away are on the move, drawn by the light that you and your village radiate. They will not understand that darkness also needs understanding. They are accustomed to fighting. We need to prepare for what is to come." Elion's words cast a shadow of concern over Samuel, but at the same time, ignited a flame of determination. He had learned that facing darkness did not mean fighting, but understanding. He gathered the villages and shared Elion's warning. "A new journey awaits us," he said. "But we must not fear. We will continue to cultivate our light, and through it, find ways to communicate and mediate. Fear cannot govern our lives. Aware of what was to come, the village united in a renewed effort to deepen their understanding of balance. The training consisted not only of defensive practices but of nurturing bonds with nature and seeking harmony between the beings that coexisted in shadows and light. The servants of dark forces, feeling the vibrant energy of the village, began to draw near. Instead of direct attacks, they infiltrated small meetings, disguising themselves as lost wanderers. Samuel had noticed these new lights and shadows moving through the forest. One night, when the stars shone brightly and the moon cast a serene glow, Samuel led the villagers to the clearing. With Alien by his side, he decided it was time to make contact with these new presences. "Let us come together as a community," he said, "and talk. Now is not the time to fight, but to understand. They need to know they are not enemies, and I am not a monster." The meeting was tense, but Samuel made a gesture of openness. He drew the hearts and souls of all to align in purpose. When the shadow beings finally revealed themselves, they realized that instead of fearing the light of the village, a bridge could be built. "We know that darkness often seems to be the only path," Samuel said, looking at the group of shadowy figures. "But here, in this land, we believe that everyone can find their place. Come share your stories. Tell us your pains and fears." The dialogue began timidly, but soon enveloped everyone, revealing not only the pain and struggle of those who had lived in shadows, but also the ignorance that often perpetuated divisions. Through conversation, distrust and fear transformed into understanding. In that first meeting, the connection between the shadow beings and the village began to solidify. And in every word exchanged under the moonlight, Samuel saw not only a future of peace, but a path where the lessons of each being contributed to a more harmonious world. And so, a new legend began to be written, richer than all previous stories. A legend that spoke of the seventh son, who not only overcame his curse, but also became the bridge between shadows and light, never forgetting that true power comes from empathy and harmony. Time passed, and under the light of the waxing moon, the village transformed into a true temple of learning and coexistence. At each gathering, the stories of the shadow beings interwove with the experiences of the villagers. Through dialogue, distrust was dissolving, and a new community order arose where every voice was valued. Samuel continued to play his role as a leader and mediator, learning each day about the delicate balance between light and darkness. However, in his heart, he felt that the true test of his journey was yet to come. Although there was peace in the village, the connection with the alien reminded him that more powerful forces were at work. On a night when the clearing was illuminated only by starlight, a stronger presence arrived in the village. Samuel and Elian were discussing the next steps to expand the union between beings of light and shadows when a thunderous sound echoed in the distance. Clouds quickly formed, obscuring the sky and bringing an air of expectation. "This is not good," Alien murmured, its glow beginning to dim as the storm intensified. "Something is coming. It may be a warning or a challenge we cannot ignore." When the storm finally hit the village, a chilling wind blew through the trees, as if nature itself was alerting them to an impending danger. The voices of the shadow beings resonated amid the storm, craving protection and guidance. Samuel quickly gathered the villagers and the shadow beings in a circle at the center of the clearing. "We must protect ourselves, but we cannot forget that what is coming may be either a force of destruction or an opportunity for growth," he said, looking into the eyes of everyone present. "Maintain the unity, stay focused. We must connect with the essence of nature, with the earth, and prepare to face whatever comes." As the rain began to fall, healing and nourishing the life around, Samuel raised his arms to the sky and asked everyone to unite their energies. Each began to chant, invoking the protection of the earth, the wind, and the water. The storm seemed to resonate their voices, creating a wave of energy that surged, sending vibrations throughout the forest. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the midst of the storm, a shadow larger than all the previous ones. With a swift movement, it revealed itself as a colossal being, wrapped in thick darkness that pulsed like a heart. Its eyes gleamed with an ancient fury, and its presence dominated the clearing. It was as if all darkness contained in a being manifested there. "I am Kale, Lord of the Abyss," the voice reverberated, powerful and terrifying. "You, Samuel, dared to unite the shadows and the light, and for that, I have removed my protection. You will now face the true darkness that cannot be tamed." The terror that gripped the eyes of the villagers and shadow beings was palpable. The balance between light and darkness seemed to be undone, as if hope itself could dissolve in the face of that presence's magnitude. "We need not fear you, Kale," Samuel declared firmly, holding his gaze steady on the being. "We know there is beauty in darkness and strength in light. What you see as weakness is our greatest strength. What you seek can be found in understanding, not in destruction." Kale hesitated for a moment. Samuel's words seemed to resonate within his very essence, something even the Lord of the Abyss could not ignore. But darkness still throbbed within him, feeding off his surroundings, the doubts and fears that hovered over the clearing. "Your words carry no weight against the power that I possess," the being replied, as the storm around Samuel intensified. But Samuel was determined. He understood that a power confrontation was not the answer, but rather a quest for connection. "If you wish to be a true leader, Kale, you must learn to listen. The time has come to unite, not to separate." Instead of attacking, Samuel began to channel the energy from the earth and the connection he had created in his village. He recalled all practices, all teachings, and invoked an ancient ritual of empathy and welcome. The circle of opposing beings that would unite for the first time could become a mirror of understanding. The voices of all, both from the village and the shadows, resonated in a new song. And with each note, light began to pulse around Samuel and Aelian, enveloping Kale in a vibrant halo. It was a sincere attempt to invite him to redemption, rather than combat. Kale faltered. The darkness that defined him began to tremble. The voices surrounding him were filled with love and strength. Could he allow a new form of light to penetrate his existence? In a moment of weakness, the eyes of the being, once filled with fury, began to shine with a new emotion. Do you really believe that darkness can be a place of learning and connection?" Kale asked, his voice now filled with doubt and curiosity. "Yes," Samuel answered fervently. "Darkness can hurt and deceive, but it teaches us something. But we need to understand each other. Together, we can grow. You need not be feared." It seemed that a battle was being waged not between light and darkness, but within Kale. In a moment of decision, the storm began to calm. The darkness around him began to dissolve and disperse. "I am what I am, placed in a role I did not choose," he whispered, finally letting the voices of understanding invade his thoughts. "If there is hope in this light, perhaps I have been wrong to seek only destruction." Upon hearing those words, Samuel and Aelian stepped forward. "Allow us to work together. Let us help you discover what it means to truly live, and not just exist." It was the prelude to what could become a new alliance. Over time, Kale accepted the light now shining around him. Although the shadow of his essence did not disappear, he began to know he could coexist with the colors of life. From that day forward, Samuel, Aelian, and Kale would work together to promote a new way of coexistence among all in the forest, a system in which light and darkness could dance together. The village would become a beacon of hope, a place where everyone would learn that they were not merely opposites, but integral parts of a whole. The story of Samuel, the seventh son, would now become a legend that would echo throughout the land, reminding everyone that true strength lies in understanding, acceptance, and solidarity. And thus, light and darkness were no longer seen as rivals but as partners dancing in an eternal quest for balance and harmony, each finding beauty in its own essence.